welcome to 500 days of hardcore Minecraft in an ocean-only world. If you're new to this series, then you should definitely go check out all the previous videos of this 100-day series. But in this 100 days, I want to build some new auto farms, go on some adventures, and do another giant underwater build. And if for some reason you guys aren't subscribed, because YouTube's telling me a good majority of you guys aren't, make sure to subscribe because we're flying up to 1 mil subs, so you guys got to join the community. But for now, guys, here's 500 days of hardcore Minecraft. All right, in day 401, getting a little bit of a late start to the day, but I started it off by updating you guys on the podzol, which did not spread, like at all. So it looks like I'm not even going to be able to get dookie grass in this world. So I figured that if I sacrifice some chicken eggs, then maybe one day the lands will be rich enough to spread. And also I figured that while I'm here, I'm seeing a lot of people comment saying that I just got to bone meal the dirt and then I'll get some grass. But here, let me show you real quick. Here, let me just hear that. It doesn't work. I don't know what version of Minecraft you guys are playing that it works, but it doesn't work here. Afterwards, I noticed that the mob grinder was getting pretty full, so I went over there and cleaned it out. But then I remembered that I trapped my wandering trader that sold me pods. Wait, you got snacked on by a zombie? Well, I guess I'm not getting any more podzol. So I got my boat back and noticed that the sun was going down. Day 402. I finally had enough with this mob grinder, so I began working on a new platform in preparations for our new farm. New mob farm. But after finishing up with that, I noticed that the potato farm needed a trim. I like you cut, G. And then, of course, I took those potatoes and turned them into cold, hard emeralds. Day 403. Back to preparing for this farm. I was going to need a lot of dispensers for this thing, which means I was going to need a lot of bows, which also meant that I was going to need a lot of string, which I could get from my spider farm. I pretty much just sat at the spider farm for most of the day, just collecting string and using it to heal my tools. So not much else to talk about here. Day 404. We're back at home, and I just realized that I have to name the captain llama. I said that the most liked comment in 400 days would be able to pick the name, and the most liked comment is Paulgg by Beppo. But I think they might have commented something else. I don't know. It says that it's been edited. I see you though. But either way, let's go name the... Wait, where's my llama? So wait, does the llama just despawn no matter what? I gave it a temporary name and it still despawns? Well, I guess the brown pearl just might be captainless forever. I guess I could just name myself Paulgg then. Now that that's out of the way, I just spent the rest of the day just preparing for the new mob farm. Like getting some wood, crafting up some dispensers, getting some more redstone. Day 405 to 415. I realized I should probably go check on Chickpea since it's been a while since we last seen him. And I know how much you guys love to see him, so I set off for Mount Chickpea. After having a little chat with him, I realized that the banished cartographer was still here. Then I remembered that he actually buys paper. And since I don't have a cartographer at home, I figured that maybe I could get him in the boat. But he still seems to be hurt, so I'm gonna let him have his time. Afterwards, I returned home to begin construction on the new mob farm. But what I didn't realize is that this was actually gonna take about 10 days. I built this farm in the past to specifically farm for gunpowder, but for now, I'll just have it farm for all the mobs. It was a really long and grueling process that took tons of cobblestone. But once it was all done, it was completely worth it. Day 416, it was time to chop down the old mob grinder because I realized that it's actually hogging up some of the mobs. So I grabbed some scaffolding. I don't really know why I did that instead of using my elytra, but either way, I spent the entire day just chipping away at this giant beast. But I forgot that I also made this a double-decker. Double-decker cheeseburger. After underestimating how thick this thing was, I had to come back on day 417. So I continued to mow down this giant beast. That is until on the way down to clear out my inventory, I noticed that there was another traveling trader. And since I don't let people live here rent-free, I went to go see what his trades were. Turned out that he was actually selling nautilus shells and slime. Coincidentally, two things that I wanted to get in 400 days. So I quickly started to do some trades so that I could get some more emeralds so that then I could be able to buy all of what he has. But apparently it's not very much. So those trades were kind of pointless. And because he hardly sold me anything, I figured that I would just take his llama, which will unlikely be the permanent captain of the brown pearl. But regardless, I held up my end of the bargain and gave him the name tag. Day 418. I got back to grinding the grinder as hard as I could. And luckily, after an entire day of grinding on the grinder was finally grinded. Thank you. Oh god. Day 419. Now that I got rid of that old mob grinder, I had a ton of mob trash that I had to go through and organize. But most importantly, I turned the rotten flesh into stonks. Afterwards, I finished up the day by checking on the new mob grinder, and it definitely seems like it's cranking away. Day 420. But since it is day 420, I gathered up all my gunpowder so that I can light it up, so I can light up some TNT. But to be able to make all that TNT, I was gonna need a lot of sand. So I flew out to the only tiny islands I knew that was nearby, and I robbed them of their sand. Day 421 to 423. I started off by trading with the never mind. Apparently Chicken 125 thought it'd be funny to kill my traveling merchant, and for that he's banished to Mount Chickpea. Then afterwards it was time to head into the Nether, where I was going to spend the next 2 days mining for ancient debris with TNT. Honestly, I just love mining with TNT. You could just mindlessly dig a hole and then put a giant row of TNT in it and then explode it, and then with a little over 2 stacks of TNT I managed to get 27 ancient debris, so honestly not too shabby. I was also thinking about slowly hollowing out a giant cavern here just by mining with a bunch of TNT. I think it'll look terrifying but also be really fun. Day 424, we're back at home and I'm smelting down my ancient debris and then crafting them all into netherite ingots. And if you were wondering why I was mining ancient debris, it's because I was going to make a new armory where the old mob grinder used to be. But after building out the first layer, I realized that I built it all out of stone brick, which didn't really match the blackstone builds. So down it goes. Day 425 to 426, I'm back at it with construction. And this time I got the right materials. The entire time while building this, I just kept experimenting with different designs and patterns. And honestly, I have to say that this is definitely my least favorite build I've ever made. This thing just looks kind of like a tank. Well, I guess that's kind of a good thing though, since it's supposed to be an armory. Anyways, I finished off the ugly beast and put some item frames inside and put my netherite armor in there. Looking back on it, I don't know why I didn't just use armor stands. On day 427, I started off the day by heading over to Trader Tower. That is until I noticed a creeper inside the Shake Shack, so I busted out the blicky and tried sniping him. But one of my villagers got caught in the crossfire. Yeah, he'll be fine, he's just gotta walk it off. But now that that's taken care of, I went to the top of Trader Tower to be able to build out like a little penthouse area, because I figured it would be a lot easier to breed villagers at the top of the penthouse to be able to then send them down to work. So then I finished off the day by placing a rail system so that the villagers could get up to the new penthouse. Day 428, I spent the entire day moving everyone, and dang does that rail cart zoom. But after zooming each and every single one of them up to the top of the penthouse, I set up a bunch of beds and finished off the day by cleaning up all the rails. Day 429 to 430. It's been a little while since I've worked on the potato farm, so I washed them all down into the hoppers and replanted them. I definitely want to change this thing to be a fully automatic farmer because it just takes so much time just to replant every single one of these potatoes. But afterwards, of course, I turned some of those potatoes into emeralds. And I was going to cook up the last of the potatoes because I'm running low on food. But that's when I realized that I'm running out of coal. So I figured I could go get some coal in the Nether by slaying some wither skellies. Now, I know this isn't really the most effective way, but I want to get some more skulls anyways. So after arriving at the farmer, I was running up and down the runway a little bit, but that is until I started playing whack-a-mole with the magma slimes. These guys were just taunting me until I realized that I was just wasting my time. But after going up and down the runway a few times... Oh, doorbell.
Hi Paul, I'm new pizza person. Here is your pizza. What's that? It's only 27.4% of a pizza. Whoa, that sounds so sad. Imagine that happening to you. Well, guess what? That's what you do to Paul when only 27.4% subscribe. You give Paul 27.4% of a pizza every day until you sub to his channel. Please sub so Paul can go back to eating whole pizzas again.
But after going up and down the runway a few times, I realized I could also firework up and down it, which was pretty fun because it made a cool running sound. But no more playing around, it was time to bust some cheeks. But after a day and a half of farming, I got 2 wither skulls. Yep, just 2. That's right guys, I got terrible luck, so what? But that's okay because I got more at home. Day 431 to 436. The mob farm was doing pretty well. So well, in fact, that I decided to add a bunch more layers to this thing and make it insanely OP. And since I got all that cobblestone from tearing down the old mob farm, it was a piece of cake, so I built this thing all the way up to the clouds. But because I'm a genius, and after building all these different layers and putting a roof on it, I realized that I didn't put any torches on each level. So adding all the water to the dispensers was a pain because all the mobs, but otherwise it was all right because it was all worth it. This thing's gonna start pumping out an insane amount of loot. I mean, look at this thing, it's intimidating. Day 437, I realized I'm pretty much completely out of wood, so I just spent the entire day just growing and chopping down oak trees. Honestly, it was a pretty peaceful day, just hanging out with my chickens. Day 438, I decided I wanted to finally go on another big adventure. It's been a little while since I've done one. But on the last big adventure that I went on, it took forever to get home and I started running out of food and fireworks. So I made sure I spent all of day 438 thoroughly prepping for this thing because I don't want anything bad to happen this time. And of course, I also fed my villagers because who knows if I'm ever even even going to come back, and they might just be starving while I'm gone. Day 438 to 451. I started this adventure off by heading into the Nether, because the quickest way to get really far away is by flying on the roof of the Nether. So after popping a few fireworks, it was time to build a Nether portal. And after going through it, it put me in a mine shaft, or so I thought. I ran around in the caves and I literally couldn't find any other part of the mine shaft other than what I spawned on. So I went back and tore down the portal and started flying a little further away so I could be able to make a new one. And this time it spawned me over the water and about 20,000 blocks away from home. Now this was a really long journey, so I'll just try to summarize it as best as I can for all the days that really mattered. Like on day 439, I found a giant island not too far away from the portal, so I could definitely come back here and get some more sand later if I need it. Day 441 to 442. I decided to stop at sunken ships so that I'm able to get a bunch of loot and as well as treasure maps, which actually worked out because I started collecting things that I actually needed for my conduit. And then obviously tons of gold, iron, and diamonds. Day 443. I found a full-size boat sitting in a giant coral reef. That's when I realized I should start chopping down all the wood of these ships since I don't have any saplings for dark oak or spruce. And I'm never going to see these ships again anyway, so what does it matter? Day 446, I found another exposed stronghold. This got me a bit confused because I thought this was the one I already found, but it wasn't, so I spent the day looting it. Day 447, I found a giant underwater portal. I thought this thing was pretty neat, and I spent a lot of time mining around in it trying to find a chest. But spoilers, there wasn't, so that's disappointing. Day 448. I was texting while flying and I almost flew right into an ocean monument. So note to self, guys, don't text and fly. Later that day, I found an underwater city where I fought off tons of drowns. And that's when I had the realization that I actually want to make an overpowered fishing rod. Fishing rod. Because I was getting tons of fishing rods from all the drowns. Day 449. I was trying to get some buried treasure that was a little bit too close to an ocean monument. So of course I got miner's fatigue. Great. But it was also coming towards the end of the day, so I stopped at a tiny island to sleep. Day 450. I waited for a really long time, actually, for the miner's fatigue to go away. But I was determined to wait because the island that I stopped on had this like giant square shape in it. I actually really wanted to dig inside to see what it was, but it wasn't really anything special. It just kind of turned into a cave. So I flew around the island a bit because honestly, it's looking kind of sus, I'm not gonna lie. But I continued on with my adventure. And at the end of the day, I actually found a massive island. This thing definitely takes the cake for the tallest island I've found yet. And not too long into day 251, I found a floating nether portal. The loot was pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie, but this thing kind of just looked really cool. And afterwards I continued on with my adventure and I actually found an old nether portal. So it's obvious that I've been here, I just don't know how or where I came from. And luckily I picked the right direction because I managed to find my stronghold. And so that means not long after I actually made it home. Day 452. This is where the 500-day video kind of just takes a 180. While recording this, my power went out, which actually corrupted the file for this video. So naturally, the first thing I did was go to Twitter to complain. But then I also spent a couple hours to try to recover the file that got corrupted. But I did it for you guys because I wasn't going to just show you a black screen and talk about what I did on those days. So on day 452, I spent the day just trying to get an OP fishing rod. I kept enchanting a bunch of different fishing rods and then grindstoning some and combining others until finally I got the super fishing rod. Day 453, I flew over to my small vacation home and just spent the entire day fishing. And the first thing I actually got with this OP fishing rod was another fishing rod that actually has mending on it, which works out perfectly because now I don't have to buy a mending book. And honestly, it was just such a peaceful, nice day. Day 454 to 455. I started off the day by upgrading my fishing rod by adding mending. Afterwards, I went into the Nether to fly up to the XP farmer because after enchanting all these fishing rods, it made me lose a lot of levels. So I just AFK'd for the rest of the day, getting all sorts of levels and then flying back up and then getting all sorts of levels and then AFKing some more. And I definitely tried to grab as much rotten flesh and gold as I can because the lag was getting a little OP. And besides, then I could be able to turn it all into stonks anyways. And on my way out, I realized that my tools need a bit of that mending juice. So I pretty much just AFK'd for the rest of day 455. And while healing all my tools, I actually noticed that my axe doesn't even have mending on it. So on day 456, I started off the day by adding mending to my axe. And then I grabbed all the rotten flesh and a bunch of gold, and then I went over to Trader Tower so I could get some of that cold hard emeralds. But after these trades, I've realized I definitely need to bring down some more villagers soon. Afterwards, I decided to fly around and try to find some more underwater drowned cities, since that seems like the fastest way to being able to get Nautilus shells, since I'm also going to need those to be able to make a conduit later. but I probably should have checked how much I was going to need before coming out here. But just in case, I spent almost all of day 457 out here slaying drowns and hunting down treasures, and we managed to get a handful of Nautilus shells, so we should be all right. Day 458, I spent the entire day breaking down the potato farm because I'm getting kind of tired of this setup and it needs to be better. And on day 459, I started building up the new potato farm, and I wanted to make it kind of like a giant glass bubble so that I could be able to protect my villagers from the outside world. Last thing I want is them turning into zombies on me. Day 460, it's time to start moving over some villagers so that I'm able to breed them and turn them into farmers and hard workers. So I set up this giant rail system heading from Trader Tower all the way to the potato farm, and I sent off my first villager. But then he started being difficult like always and just wanted to go take a job inside the house instead of being in the potato farm and wasting my time. But then on day 461, I finished moving over my second villager and gave him a farming job and started feeding him potatoes so that hopefully they can have that baby juice flowing. But afterwards, I pretty much closed out the day by cleaning up all the rails and cobblestone mess. Day 462. Doesn't really seem like the villagers are making babies, so I decided to put them in the brown pearl and see if that'll help them with the baby making. And afterwards, I realized that I haven't checked on the mob farm for a while, and dang is this thing getting packed. And with all those materials, I decided to go do some stonks. We're trying to get rich because I'm going to be spending a lot of money later. Day 463 to 464, I spent the entire time chopping down trees. Literally just growing trees and chopping them down. But at least on day 464, I got this foolproof strategy of making it so that a tree could only grow to a certain height. It was working out perfectly. But I was going to need a ton of wood because I was going to start modifying the mob farm so that it only starts spitting out creepers, because I want to try to get a lot of gunpowder for TNT for 600. Start running out of breath. For TNT for the 600-day video. So on day 465 to 468, I spent the entire time adjusting the mob farm so that it'll only spawn those creepers. And to do that, basically all I had to do was put some trapdoors on the roof because creepers are just some short boys. But this was an incredibly time-consuming job considering the fact that I kept getting pushed around by water and it was really annoying. But it's going to be worth it in the long run. And after spending all that time, I only ended up making it halfway down the mob farm. But I decided that might actually be for the best, so that I'm able to still get some rotten flesh for stonks. Day 469, checking on the potato farmers. And it looks like they actually got a kid that's grown up. So I shoveled some more potatoes at them so they could get them juices flowing. Then I went to Trader Tower to go do some stonks, but apparently 2 of my villagers transformed into zombies. So it looks like no stonks today. And I decided to finish off the day by brewing up a bunch more potions of weakening because I'm starting to run low on those. Day 470. The farmers finally had another kid. So I began setting up the auto farmer system, make it so that the other 2 villagers are doing all the farming work, and then they try throwing potatoes to their friend, but then there's a hopper in between, and it's just this whole thing. But it works out perfectly because they walk right up and start throwing potatoes once their inventory is full. Day 471. While waiting for that last baby villager to grow so that I could put the finishing touches on the potato farm, I decided to build a chandelier so that there'll be plenty of light in here so that no mobs will spawn. But afterwards, I noticed that the baby villager had grown up and I needed to separate them so that I could divide the room in half. But like always, villagers are just a struggle. But luckily, after enough pushing around, I managed to get them separated. So now the only place that they could throw potatoes is at the villagers that are behind the hoppers. Day 472. I started off the day by making a hoe, and then of course I turned it into netherite, and then of course I decided to go enchant it. And remember guys, you can't put loyalty on a hoe, but you can get fortune 3. And afterwards I went to the potato farm and got it all set up and loaded with potatoes so that the villagers can begin all their farming. And then I went and got some Starbucks, and so I just kind of hung out with potato farmers. Anyways, day 473. I started off by getting some of them cold hard emeralds. Afterwards, I decided that next time I come here, I'm going to need to get better deals. So I decided to dunk my villagers. But then I realized I haven't cleaned out any of the auto farmers lately. So I went to go clean out the iron farm and yep, it's overflowing. So I grabbed as much iron as I could and turned them all into blocks. And then I expanded the chest of the iron farm to a double chest. Afterwards, I cleaned out the sugarcane farm, which is definitely going to need an upgrade in the future because it doesn't seem like it's doing too much. And then I checked on the bamboo farm and dang is that thing pumping. Bamboo grows fast. Day 474 to 476. I decided it was finally time to make that conduit, but that's when I found out I actually still need just 1 more Nautilus shell. So I set off on an adventure to hopefully find another underwater city, but after finding tons of drowns and I had no luck on day 474, so on day 475 I tried the treasure map strategy because that seemed to work before, but I mindlessly just looted a bunch of chests and had no luck, and honestly I just wanted to give up. But finally on day 476 176, I managed to find one drowned holding a nautilus shell. So after clapping his cheeks, I realized I was super far away from home, and I spent the entire day trying to find home, and it just honestly took forever. It was a long trip. Day 477. Now that I finally got everything to craft that conduit, the only pieces that I was missing was prismarine blocks, which I'm gonna have to get from an ocean monument. And after arriving at one, I quickly rushed to grab as many blocks as possible before getting miner's fatigue, but it's still just so slow. So I tried to craft up some doors, and I got miner's fatigue. Nice. And so while waiting for the miner's fatigue to go away, I figured that I could do some stonks at Trader's Tower, but I forgot that my villagers were still zombies. So I just safely AFK'd in the potato farm instead. On day 478, now that the miner's fatigue is gone, it's time to make that conduit. I decided to make it not too far away from my base, but also close enough to my next giant underwater project. But while building around the conduit, apparently I didn't have enough blocks, which meant that I gotta go back to the ocean monument. But this time I was gonna be prepared with doors already, which definitely seemed to work because I actually got a ton of blocks before even getting miner's fatigue. And on day 479, I started off by finishing up with that conduit, and then I realized that I was gonna need a whole lot more prismarine blocks for my next big project. So I flew back to the ocean monument, but this time I got instant miner's fatigue. Yep, like literally right away. So pretty much for the rest of the day, I just did some stonks and AFK'd. Day 480 to 500. This is gonna be a long one. Hold on. Buckle up, boys and girls. I'm heading back over to the ocean monument, but this time like a pro. I'm doing the old lower down the view distance strategy to prevent getting miner's fatigue, which it worked out perfectly. I was able to mine freely and get all the blocks I was gonna need. And afterwards, I pretty much just spent the remainder of the 100 days building a giant fish tank. Now, I'm sure I'm gonna get called dumb for building a fish tank in an ocean world because it is just a giant fish tank, but let's be real here. I mean, this world is dumb, so it's only suiting. Regardless, I had to start off by building a giant circle, and this circle took me forever because the fact that I didn't want to mess up, even though I did a couple times. But afterwards, then I had to get all my glass, which luckily I was cooking up a lot of glass because I was gonna have to wall in the entire thing, which just took a giant chunk of time. Afterwards, I wanted to terraform the inside with sand so that I can make sure that there wasn't any gaps with the glass, but also give the fish tank just some character. But then I ran out of sand, so I went into the Nether and flew to the portal I made on the roof really far away so I could go to the giant island that we found earlier. And I just shoveled all the sand I was ever going to need. And after finishing up with all that terraforming, I had to get a bunch of pretty coral and pickles so that I could be able to light up the place so it's not so depressing in here. And then the last thing I was going to do was get a bunch of fish, but I started with the puffer fish and it didn't seem like he wanted to live in my luxurious fish tank. I tried to grab as many different colored fish as I could. And then afterwards, I made the best financial decision to spend a ton of emeralds on buying name tags, but I somehow only ended up with 12. But regardless though, first 12 people that join my Discord, which is linked down below by the way, and type their favorite color in the general chat, I will name a fish after you. I mean, but please don't spam that color, all right? But the sun is setting on the 500th day, just in time for some B-roll. I hope you guys enjoyed this 100 days because I had a ton of fun with it. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe. Also comment down below if you want a 600 day video. But for now, guys, I will see you in the next one.